The ACC is in dire need of help, and thankfully there's a quartet of new coaches coming in to turn the tide.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Monday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We're your host. This is my guy, Andy Patton. I'm Isaac Shade, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Man, thanks for making us your first listener watch. I want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all you everydayers out there, all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord community as well. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Great stuff. Andy and I are recording here on Mother's Day, which reminds us to say Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers or mother figures out there. We know there's a lot of people that play that role in life, and we are grateful for all of you. Coming up on the show today, we want to get into a conversation about the new coaches coming into the ACC. It's funny the way this conversation got started actually stemmed out of Malik Thomas committing to Virginia, and here we are now talking about coaches. But we've got a quartet of new coaches in Jay Lucas at Miami, Will Wade at NC State, Ryan Odom at Virginia, and Luke Loucks at FSU. And basically, we want to break this up into three conversations today. First segment, can this quartet help be part of a foundation that's getting the ACC back to its former glory? We want to look at which of this quartet is going to have the most success this season. And then finally, which of this quartet will have the longest tenure of success at this current school. Andy, I think it's going to be a lot of fun conversations today. And so let's get right into it in segment one here. And just want to ask you, Andy, can this quartet be part of a core that has begun to be made, I can't think of a better word than that, along with the likes of John Shire and Pat Kelsey, to help bring the ACC back to what we expect from it?
Yeah, I think it's a tough ask. It's a tough ask. I think that I'm very optimistic, certainly about the two coaches who have a proven track record of Division I success. Of course, Will Wade, who has an incredible track record of success as a head coach at various stops, including in the SEC at LSU. He was, unbelievably dominant at McNeese these last couple of years. Similarly, Ryan Odom has won every place that he has been. Jay Lucas, an incredible recruiter. Can he coach is a big question. And then Luke Loucks, it's a bit more of a question mark just in general as somebody who comes in from the NBA rankings. He was a highly successful and highly kind of thought of assistant coach, winning championships with the Golden State Warriors while he was there. So certainly don't want to say he's not qualified or anything like that, but he certainly comes in with more question marks than any of the rest of them. But the reason that this is such an uphill battle is, and with apologies to Kevin Keats, three of these coaches were absolute legends. Tony Bennett, of course, a national champion from his time at Virginia, incredibly successful coach. Jim Larrañaga led Miami to back-to-back Elite Eights, the first ever Final Four run. Of course, had that Final Four run at George Mason. And then Leonard Hamilton, who was at Florida State for 110 years, was wildly successful there as well. Kind of tapered off a little bit towards the end. Same with Larrañaga. Same with all of them, really. But, if you're asking me if these four coaches can have the same overall amount of success as the four that they're replacing, that's an incredibly difficult ask. But can they help elevate this conference that has been kind of sputtering a little bit? Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to see we've already seen an influx of talent for the rosters at Virginia and Miami and NC State and even Florida State as well. I think, that roster is still coming together, but the others are really in great shape. And so I think that the immediate kind of move is going to help this conference in the sense that Miami's not going to be in the cellar anymore. I feel pretty confident about that. Virginia is going to be better. NC State under Will Wade is going to be better. But are they overall going to have the same long-term success as their predecessors? That's a much trickier question. And I would ultimately think probably not, only because they're replacing literally multiple Hall of Famers out of this group here.
That's
but
right.
It's a great direction that the conference is going. And I think there's a lot of optimism about all four of these coaches at their respective programs.
And I think that's the nice thing, Andy, is it's like, just the numbers game of it all. Not every coach is going to hit, but you need like a couple of them out of each class that's coming into the ACC, right? And part of the issue is, as you said, 3 of these guys are replacing legends, and that goes along with other legends that we've had to recently replace, including Coach K, including Roy Williams. That's 57 national championships right there. Jim Boeheim, we've already talked about Coach Bennett and Larry Hamilton, but also Mike Bray. And so that's 7 just gargantuan coaches that have to be replaced from this conference. And so, yes, Andy, we can and will, when it talks about getting the ACC back to its level, talk about the players and talk about the wins. But so much of that is about having coaches that it just feels like it all starts and stops with them. For my money's worth, that's part of what, along with the money, is making the SEC so good right now, is just their influx of great coaches. And so we almost have to look, yes, at the 4 that are coming in, but look at other recent classes, because there's been so much turnover, right? Like now, as things stand, Brad Brownell, Mr. Hot Seat himself, which thankfully he's not anymore, is the longest tenured coach in this conference. After that, maybe some people would guess it, but probably a lot wouldn't. After that, it's Jeff Capel. And he's only been at Pitt since 2018. The second longest tenured coach in the ACC is only in year, what would that be, like 7 or 8 heading into the year. And so in all of that, we're going to have guys that are really solid, right? It seems like John Shire has been, I think he's going to be the dude for Duke. I think that's a win. Like, it's so hard to be the guy after the guy, but all signs point to John Shire is going to be great. We don't know about Micah Shrewsbury yet, right? We don't know fully about Hubert Davis yet. That one's kind of odd. I think Red Autry is probably not going to wind up being the guy at Syracuse. I hate to say that, but it's just, we do have a couple foundational pieces to build off of, Andy. And I think John Shire is one of those. I think Pat Kelsey is going to be one of those. And now it's like, if even just 2 of these 4 that we're talking about today can be part of a new nucleus, I think that helps the ACC a ton.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think you look at kind of these new additions in the recent years. I mean, Pat Kelsey absolutely stands out and he stands out because he inherited a program that was, I mean, disarray doesn't even feel like it fully encapsulates where that program was, and immediately turned them around. Whereas, like, sure, I think if you're Red Autry, you could make the argument of like, I inherited a Syracuse program that hadn't been very good. Part of that was he was on staff, so he can't really blame anybody else. But he hasn't elevated Syracuse. And in the modern era, like, if you can't turn a program around, like, you have to be able to do that. And you look at like these new coaches, like all of them coming in. I mean, we'll talk about it more later in the show, but like all of them have basically turned over their entire rosters. Virginia's got nine new players coming in. I think NC State's at 9. I think Miami's at 8 or 9. Florida State's at 7 or 8. Like they're completely new rosters. Like, I think Miami added an entire starting lineup in the transfer portal. Like, you have to be able to turn a roster around quick. And the fact that Red Autry hasn't makes me not feel like he's the guy. And again, Shrewsbury, it's like the jury's still out a little bit because they've been better. Notre Dame has been better, but they haven't been great yet, and then you got the new programs coming in. I think Kyle Smith's a phenomenal coach, but Stanford hasn't proven it at Stanford yet. I think, again, the jury's still out there, but Andy Enfield, Mark Madsen, it's okay. But like, I think there's still some optimism for this conference, but really this new group coming in right now is going to have a lot to do with how we feel about this. Because if it's Shire, Kelsey, and Odom and Wade, then you feel a lot better. But if it's Shire and Kelsey and, Odom, flounders, or Lucas doesn't look very good, like, then it's like, okay, who else is going to kind of step up and lead this conference? Because, Shire obviously inherited a great situation, but he has elevated that situation, or at least maintained it. Yeah. Whereas I don't know that you can say the same for Hubert. I don't know if you can say the same for some of these other coaches. And so it's going to be interesting to see, in particular, what Odom at Virginia and Wade at NC State, I think, are the 2 in the short term that we're really interested in as coaches who have a track record of success. Like, there's not going to be as long of a leash. Like, they got to go out and get it done right away. Florida State's going to give Loucks a leash. Lucas is going to get a leash at Miami, but those 2 coaches, you got to go knock it out now. And you got to prove that you have a top 10, maybe even top 5 team in the ACC in the next 2 years, or else people are already going to start to be wondering if you're the guy long-term.
And Andy, I mean, it's so tough because as you were talking, it made me start thinking 6 years ago, if I had said to you, Andy, which coach do you feel the third best about in the ACC?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably Tony Bennett
Mm-hmm.
behind Coach K and Coach Williams.
K and Roy, yeah.
If I asked you right now, Mother's Day 2025, which coach do you feel the third most confident in the ACC? Well, I'm sure we could get to an answer, but I'd have to stop and think about who that is.
Yeah, it's one of Brownell or Kelsey because, or Shire, I guess. Those are probably your top three. And that's a decent top three, but it's after that, it really gets questionable. And even then, like Tony Bennett as your third is better than Brownell or Kelsey as your third, especially at this point. I think Kelsey's a great coach. We haven't really proven it yet. So, yeah, I'm with you. And then if you look in top five, I mean, at this point, I'm probably already putting Wade or Odom in my top five, and they haven't even coached a single game in the conference yet. Yeah. So again, the pressure's on. Like these guys got to deliver because this conference has, and there's some other coaches we haven't talked about yet that we won't spend a lot of time on. But like, I'm intrigued by Damon Stoudemire, but I wouldn't say he's been great yet. Georgia Tech's a tough place, but I'm not super optimistic about Steve Forbes. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he's alongside maybe Earl Grant or Mike White if Forbes is one of the next coaches to go. But yeah, it's an interesting spot right now. This conference really needs to have some success with these new guys coming in. And I think they will. And honestly, Isaac, that's kind of what I want to move on and talk about next is what is this going to look like? Not just long term. We'll get to that to close out the show, but what does this look like next year? Out of these four new coaches at new programs in the ACC, who is going to be the coach that kind of steps up in 25-26? Will it be one of the established coaches in Ryan Odom at Virginia or Will Wade? Or is it going to be one of the new guys, one of the rooks, Jay Lucas or Luke Loucks? We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Because between dining out, online shopping, and general entertainment costs, it's pretty easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan your long-term goals. My wife and I, we always want to make sure that we're on the same page when it comes to our finances, especially with a 14-month-old in the house. And that's why Monarch Money is so great. Thankfully, managing your money with your partner, it's smoother than ever before. You can track both your shared and personal accounts, set goals collectively, and stay on the same page without all the extra added stress. So folks, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, Isaac, continuing our conversation about the four new head coaches joining the ACC for the upcoming 25-26 season. And like we said earlier in the show, this conversation initially started with the addition of Malik Thomas at Virginia, something we kind of knew was going to happen. It had been rumored for a long time, but Malik Thomas was waiting on a waiver from the NCAA to get eligibility for an extra year. He got that full 3 days later. I'm not even sure if it was a full 3 days later. He commits to Virginia, a huge addition for Ryan Odom and the Cavs. And so I kind of want to take this conversation to look at the rosters and kind of what the outlook looks like for this upcoming season for Virginia and NC State with Odom and Wade. And then, of course, the new coaches coming in, Lucas at Miami and then Loucks at Florida State. Obviously, a lot of excitement with those programs. Isaac, I'll kind of throw it to you here. I'm looking at the rosters for Virginia and NC State. I'm really interested in Miami, more so long-term. So I want to get to that kind of to close out the show. But you look at the rosters for what Wade and Odom have done. I mean, gosh, it's hard to not think that these two programs are going to probably compete pretty much right away in the ACC. I know you follow the conference very closely. What are your thoughts on kind of what at least what the rosters look like? We know these coaches, and I think that's the big difference between this conversation with Odom and Wade versus Loucks and Lucas is like a lot of that conversation is, can they coach? Less so, can they bring in a talented roster? We know Odom and Wade can coach, and looking at the rosters, I feel pretty confident about where these teams are headed.
I agree with you, Andy. And I what's cool is, you know how I was trying to think in my mind how I compare. Like sometimes in the preseason, you look at a roster and you think, oh man, that roster, I don't know, but it's Bill Self, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. With both of these guys, it's like, boy, it's Ryan Odom,
Mhm.
so I give him the benefit of the doubt, and it's Will Wade, so I give him the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
But I also kind of like the rosters, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of the both where I've been struggling with which one of these, germane to the conversation we're having right now, which one of these do we expect to be better this season?
Mhm.
I'm struggling, Andy, because I think things will be great in both Raleigh and Charlottesville.
Yeah.
The Thomas addition
Mhm.
to go along with what Ryan Odom already has, plus the ACC history of the Odom family,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's just a lot there that I really like. But man, I just feel like, knowing what I know about Raleigh and NC State, knowing what I know about Will Wade, like, just the marriage, man,
Mhm.
is just glorious. To your point about me covering the ACC a ton.
Yeah.
But I like who he's been able to bring in. Like, we've talked so much through the years about, man, if Terrence Arsenault could just stay healthy, or
Mhm.
those kind of things. I think Trey Holloman was great at Michigan State. That feels like a great backcourt. Kadira Copeland, obviously, coming along with Coach from McNeese, will be good.
Mhm.
And so, man, if you held me down to one of these,
Mhm.
I think I would go Virginia,
Yeah.
just because I know NC State has had a better postseason run lately
Mhm.
than has Virginia, but I just think the longevity and the trust in Ryan Odom, and I from what I know of this roster early, I like it better.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm skeptical about NC State's front court at this point.
Yes.
The backcourt, I mean, Arsenault and Holloman are great, and I think that Arsenault fits what Will Wade likes to do, and I think being given a bigger role, I think he's going to be awesome. If he's healthy, I think he's going to be a breakout candidate in the ACC. As somebody who's podcasted with me regularly for years, how much I've liked Terrence Arsenault, and
Right.
how
Right.
I've predicted him as a breakout candidate for multiple years now, and it hasn't happened. So I'm staking the claim once again now with a new stop for him. I think it could fit really well, but I'm like, Jerry Dang from Florida State's okay, but he's not a great front court addition. He's more of a depth option, I think. They got some freshmen coming in, but I'm a little concerned about the front court. Whereas with Virginia, the balance of this roster really stands out to me. I mean, you got Malik Thomas, who we mentioned, 20 points per game last year at San Francisco, 39.5% from three. He was 40% the previous year. He's great at getting to the free throw line, 86% free throw shooter, and 5 attempts per game. He's very, very, very good. Offensively, he was second in the conference in steals last year in the WCC as well. And then you got Dallin Hall and Jakari White and Sam Lewis, who are all floor spacers, who are all shooters, who all, I think, can really thrive in Ryan Odom's offense. And then Devin Tillis is a really underrated addition from UC Irvine. He's really, really good. In fact, I think Evan Miyakawa's website has him as a top 50 player out of the transfer portal, out of everybody, out of thousands of players. That's a huge, huge potential addition for Ryan Odom and Virginia. And then the front court again, like Ugana Yenso is the big addition there, and it kind of depends on how confident you feel about Yenso, a player who's been a good rim protector in a limited role throughout his career. Kansas State, nothing really went very well for Kansas State last year, so it's kind of hard to glean too much from that. They also have a German freshman coming in, Johan Granlo, and I think he's a potentially big-time addition for them. So I'm skeptical on the front court for both of these teams at this point, but I'm a bit more confident in Virginia's overall roster. And I just see, I mean, the guards in particular, I just see so much scoring from that group in particular. We didn't even talk about Chance Mallory, their star freshman who's coming in, a 4-star kid, who I think now doesn't have as much pressure to play right away because of the additions of Thomas and Hall and others. But I'm leaning with Virginia for this upcoming season, even though I think Will Wade, that's close. I don't know who I think is overall a better coach. Wade has done it at LSU in the SEC where Odom has not, and I think that probably gives him a bit of an advantage. But if the only disadvantage for Odom is that he hasn't gotten the opportunity yet, he could prove that wrong very soon. So I'm leaning Odom for the roster, but I do think Wade, it's hard to bet against Will Wade.
Yeah. And Andy, I just want to concur with something you said there. The fact that Mallory now gets pushed down the depth chart is really, really good. Like, to have him coming off the bench, give him time to develop. I love rosters when they shape up that way. Now, all that said, I know we got to get to both Miami and Florida State quickly, probably a little more on Miami than Florida State. Because Andy, if you're asking me the question, which of these 4 coaches has the best success in year 1? The only thing I feel like I can definitively say is that it won't be Florida State, right? Like that is, I can't answer it the other way, but I feel like I can answer it that way. Florida State is the team that for me is going to be number 4 on 25-26 success. Will you allow me that? Is that fair?
Unless somehow stunningly for the second year in a row, Jameer Watkins not only returns to Florida State, but also, or pulls himself out of the NBA draft, but he also returns to Florida State, which I think would be shocking. Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I think Florida State's a multi-year thing. I don't think they're going to be great in year 1.
Okay. So that said, Miami, I think the big question with them, Andy, that we have to ask, and you asked this to me, but I want to ask it to you because we haven't asked it on the show. We know Jay Lucas can recruit like an absolute dude. He did it at Duke, and he's already started doing it at Miami, right? Like getting Shelton Henderson to come with him. There were rumors of the Boozer twins, which was never going to happen. But just the fact that that was rumored about, right, says everything you need to know about his ability to recruit. But Andy, can he coach? Yeah. That is what we haven't gotten to see yet. Do you think it happens, at least here in year 1? Because we'll get obviously long-term in the next conversation.
I think Miami will be significantly better in year 1. And that is the least hot take that I think you can come up with, because Miami was incredibly bad last year. And the obvious talent, Ernest Uday, Malik Renault, Marcus Allen, True Washington, Trey Donaldson. I don't think that'll be the starting 5, because I think Shelton Henderson will start over probably Marcus Allen. But that's just the 5 of their 6 transfer portal additions. If you roll out that starting lineup every single game, Lucas barely has to coach for that to be better than Miami's team last year. Like, just from a talent perspective, it's significantly better. I do think he can coach. I suspect that it'll take him a couple of years to kind of find it. Very few coaches are instantly successful when their first head coaching job is at the power conference level. That's just difficult. But there is talent on this roster, and there is a plan. And I think that is what I really want to talk about more so in the third segment. But Lucas has a plan. He has a goal. He's very good at recruiting. I think that will keep Miami in the mix continually. But I think until we see him coach a full season's worth of games, it's really hard to know how this is actually going to work. There have been a lot of coaches who are great recruiters who don't actually get it done as head coaches. And that doesn't mean Lucas will be in that mix. It just means we don't really know yet.
Yeah. And Andy, somebody else I want to point out on Miami is Dante Allen. He's a 6'4" guard coming in as a freshman out of Montverde. But I have gotten to see him play multiple times because he played for Knight Riders on the AAU circuit, which is the team that the Boozers and Caleb Wilson played for last year, all of whom are like, actually, those other 3 are all going to either Duke or North Carolina this season. But Dante Allen, man, is a dog of a guard. And like, just knowing I know Jay Lucas is a different type of coach, but Dante Allen in Miami just feels like a match made in heaven. And whether it's this year or hopefully he sticks around, because I love his game and I cannot wait to see him play at the D1 level.
Yep. I'll just say very quickly on that. That's a big question for Lucas too. Can you retain talent? Because True Washington didn't come over from New Mexico to not start. Like, True Washington didn't start, and which means Allen's probably not going to start. I suppose he could beat out. Well, he'd have to beat out Henderson, which I don't think will happen. But
he's going to play, though.
Right. He's going to play. And I think if you can keep him for another year after that, or 2-3 years, that's a huge retention is so important. Again, for Lucas, he can have all the great relationships with coaches, with his players in the world. But if he's not winning games, guys are going to start leaving. So you got to prove that you can win those basketball games.
All right, Andy, so we're talking about who's going to be the most successful this year. But we also want to look ahead to long-term. Which of this quartet of new coaches will be the most successful at their current school long-term? That's how we'll wrap up today's show, coming up in just a second. Andy, we're going to keep our attention on this quartet of new coaches, but we're going to turn our attention from this upcoming season to hopefully a multitude of seasons for these coaches, because we want to see them be all successful at their new stops. Andy, it's not a question that we asked in the 25-26 season conversation, but I do want to have us at some point in this conversation, that's going to be albeit a little bit shorter because of time, rank how successful we think they will each be 1 through 4, 1 being the most successful, 4 being the least. But Andy, let me first, before we get to that, ask you this question. As we sit here again on Mother's Day 2025, which of this new quartet do you believe will be at their current ACC school the longest?
I'm going to go with Ryan Odom. I'm going to go with Odom for a couple of reasons. One, I think Virginia is the most desirable of these 4 jobs. So the job that you're least likely to leave to kind of jump ship for another job. I think it's very desirable to Odom specifically as somebody who has so many connections to the conference. And I think that, I mean, they sought him out really aggressively when they knew they needed to make a coaching change. So, and I think he's going to be successful enough to not get fired at Virginia, and he's not going to leave. Whereas like Will Wade, I don't think NC State's going to fire Will Wade, but if 2 years from now, NC State has won 62% of their games, Will Wade's going to get a job in the SEC. Like, I'd almost guarantee it. And I wouldn't even really blame him because he'd probably get paid more money and gets back to a conference he's already been at, blah, blah, blah. Lucas and Loucks could easily, like, maybe Florida State will do like what the Steelers have done in the NFL and just have like 2 coaches who are there for a combined like 60 years and Loucks will just stay there forever. That could happen, but Loucks could also get fired in 2 years because it doesn't work. He's just way too unpredictable. And same with Lucas. I think Lucas will get a long leash because his track record as a recruiter, especially if he keeps bringing in talented classes. But to me, the combination of factors points to Odom being the guy who's going to be there the longest. What do you think?
What's funny is I was going to agree, and I purposefully didn't say because they didn't get fired, because I think what you said about Will Wade is I think the thing that people might not think about in this conversation is that their tenure might not be as long because they go elsewhere, right? Like maybe Luke Loucks, as you said, wants to get back to the NBA and gets a head job there. Or maybe he parlays the head job at FSU into a bigger head job. And Will Wade seems the most head jobbiest elsewhere kind of guy out of this.
Wade's going to be at Tennessee in like 2028. Like that's what's going to happen. Like,
dude, that would make a ton. Rick Barnes is out, Will Wade's there, right? Like I could absolutely see that happening when Rick Barnes retires. And I think part of this too is when you ask this kind of question, it's like, what is the most likely scenario, or perhaps the other way to say it is the least risky scenario, right? And I think Ryan Odom at Virginia feels the least risk or the highest floor of any of these. And so I'm right with you. I won't elaborate on it more outside of that. So Andy, now to the other thing I wanted us to do, let's rank these 1, 2, 3, 4, because you can define most successful in a whole bunch of different ways. And I like that wrinkle of this conversation. And that doesn't have to be one and the same as longest tenure, right? You could have a shorter tenure, but be wildly more successful than a school that's just fine for a long time, right? And so out of Coach Loucks, Coach Lucas, Coach Odom, and Coach Wade, which do you think, rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, one being most successful, however you define most successful at their current school?
Okay, I'll do 2. I'll do the ranking for just next season, which we were talking about doing, and then I'll do the ranking for overall most successful. Next season, in terms of the standings, it's going to be Virginia, NC State, Miami, Florida State. That's going to be the order of the 4 programs next year. That's what I feel is most likely. And in terms of overall success at their programs, I think I'm going to still go with Odom and Virginia number 1. But I'm really debating between whether I want to have Lucas in Miami ahead of Will Wade at NC State. I think Will Wade's certainly going to have more immediate success. And I think I could see Will Wade having 4 great years at NC State. I could also see him having 2 good years at NC State and then bouncing. And it's like, if he takes NC State to back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, 1 Sweet 16 in 2 years and then leaves, is that going to be more successful than potentially 10 good years from Lucas at Miami? Probably not. So I'm leaning going Virginia and Odom number 1. I think he's going to be the most successful overall at his new program because I think he's going to be there for a long time. And then I am going to go Lucas at Miami's number 2. I think that the combination, I think he's going to get a long leash. I think he's a tremendous recruiter. I think he's a good enough coach. And even if he's struggling with the X's and O's, Miami's going to bring in some assistant coaches who can help him in that space. If he's continuing to land high-profile talent, they're going to find the money to pay him some high-profile assistant coaches to get that thing rolling. I think they're going to give him a long leash. So I'll go Odom, Lucas, Wade, Loucks. And I feel bad for continuing to have Loucks last. He's just the most unproven out of this group at the college level. And Florida State is not a program that has shown a lot of interest in investing in their basketball program, and I think that might limit him as well. But certainly wouldn't be surprised if he finds a way to make the NBA Kevin Young has had a tremendous amount of success. We'll see what happens with Alex Jensen at Utah, but Loucks is somebody who could have a lot of success. He's just last on my list right now as the most unproven.
Yeah. And you made a great point there that I wanted to make in the last segment. We ran out of time, so I'm so glad you said it. And that is this, because I asked you the question about Jay Lucas's recruiting versus his coaching. It's the difference in like winning an election versus governing. Those are two very different things for a politician. And we've seen this multitudes of times with young, more inexperienced coaches getting a former head coach on their staff as like their top assistant. And I think that if the X's and O's aren't there, they're going to let him keep recruiting as an absolute dude, but make sure that he's got guys alongside him who can help with the X's and O's. So I think that will be successful. And so I'm so glad, my man, that you brought out that point. I have the exact same order as you do for next year: Virginia, NC State, Miami, Florida State. My thing is, I feel like Jay Lucas, because of his recruiting capability, because of the sexiness of Miami, South Beach, all of that. I guess some of it is we don't know what's going to happen when the house settlement is done. Like, can you throw money around? Like all of that. What's going to happen with all that? I guess we don't fully know yet. But I just feel like Miami has the potential to become a new age Kentucky one and done kind of factory, but like transfer portal-y kind of factory with Jay Lucas. And so I could very much see a world where long-term Miami is the best. The question is, Jay Lucas, who's been at Kentucky, Duke, and Miami, how much does he want to be there specifically? That's the only thing that I think. But instead of Miami State 2-3, I have Miami, Virginia 1-2 as like that. That's where I've been battling. But I think ultimately, and funnily enough, I land at the same place you do: Virginia, Miami State, FSU long term.
Yeah, I'd point out too that Lucas is from Texas. He went to Texas. He played at Texas. He did also play at Florida, but he played at Texas. He was a GA at Texas for a long time. So like, I do think that there's the risk that he leaves Miami for Texas eventually when Sean Miller's out the door, or another program in the state, maybe Houston. Well, Sampson's got his son taken over, but like, yeah, I think that the risk of Lucas leaving is something I didn't talk about, but I think is reasonable to factor in as well. Isaac, that's going to wrap it up for us today. This was a fun conversation. Again, we could have just done Malik Thomas went to Virginia. What's it mean? But I think I'm glad we expanded it to talk about. We didn't really get to talk about a lot of the coaching changes because they all happened during the NCAA tournament, which is totally understandable from the program perspectives, but was hard on us not getting to talk about those while we were still covering the big dance. So happy to get a chance to talk about these quartet of new coaches here in the ACC. But folks, that is going to wrap it up for us today on our Mother's Day recording. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being with us. Those of you who are everyday listeners and those of you hanging out with us in the Locked On College Basketball Discord channel as well. We'll be back with more on Tuesday. We'll keep talking NBA Draft Combine coming up, transfer portal, all that good stuff coming out here in the next couple of weeks. So definitely hang with us. Shout out to our moms as well. All the moms out there, all the mother figures out there. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Cheers to the Mick Bruins. And until next time, peace out.